So Richard, it seems like your experience in these growth businesses for 16 years programmed you with an expectation that most other people don't bring to their investments, to their startups, to however even they manage a company, which set you up for being very successful later on, even when the actual nature of your work changed. Is that fair?
I think that's right. I mean, after I decided that I didn't want to be a consultant anymore because it was too much like hard work, I never got myself into the position that Bill Bain was in. I started to invest in small companies, which I hope would become big companies. And actually, if you think about it, it's perfectly obvious, isn't it? The only way that a company can increase in value very fast is by growing very fast. And by growing very fast for an extended period of time, not just for 2 years or 3 years or 4 years, but for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. You know, think about McDonald's, think about Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola's grown at 10% a year for the last 100 years. Even in the Great Depression, in the 1930s, it grew very, very fast. So what I decided to do was to find some companies that were, it didn't matter if they were very small and insignificant, they were doing something different, and they had their own little niche where they were the market leader, and they could grow at 30% or in some cases 300%, 500% a year, and carry on doing that for 5 years or 10 years, and hey, you've got a very valuable business. Every single business in America, in Britain, in Europe, in Asia, that actually is very valuable today, has gone through a period of exponential growth. You know, it may have been a long time ago, but nevertheless, it's gone through a period of exponential growth. And that is what you need to find, where it's, you know, it's part of your point about the fractal nature of business, that, you know, at some scale, you know, it doesn't matter what the scale is, you know, the same consistency of growth can be manifest, you know, and gradually you move up the logarithmic scale and you become much, much bigger. So that's my simple investment philosophy, and I can't believe that it's so simple and obvious. But it's also very important for entrepreneurs, you know, to realize that they're not going to go anywhere unless they can get that period of exponential growth. And the only way to do that is to do something different in a segment where you're the market leader, and in a segment where the market either is or can be made to grow very fast. And that's all there is to investing. That's all there is to making a fortune, in my view. And that's all there is to being an entrepreneur. So if you're stuck in a business, if you're an entrepreneur and you're stuck in a business and it's not growing very fast, then you need to rethink things, because you need a formula where you can grow fast. You need a market where you may redefine the market yourself, but you need a market which can grow fast for a period of time. And if you can get that and keep that, then you can have a great time.
Now, so you have this pretty simple formula, and it's really a formula for finding needles in haystacks.
Yeah, you could put it that way.
Right? It's like, well, it has to fit this, and it has to fit this, it has to fit this. And I mean, truth be told, most companies and most businesses don't fit the formula.
No, of course they don't. You know, most businesses are not in high growth markets, and most businesses are not the leader, because you only have one leader, occasionally two if they're the same size, but that's no good. You've got to be the clear leader. So you've got, maybe, 10% of companies are actually the leader, and maybe only 5% of companies are in a very high growth market. So you're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5% of companies. But you're not talking about no companies.
Yes.
These companies exist.
Yes.
You've just got to find them or create them, and that's all there is. So yes, it's a very simple formula, and I didn't devise the formula, but I think I'm the only person who really believes in the formula to the same extent. Because I won't make an investment if it's not a star business. Sometimes you can be wrong about the definition of the market. You can think it's a defensible segment, and it isn't. So I'm not infallible with my investments. As you know, I made 16 investments in the last 20 years, 8 of which have been very successful, and some of which have gone bust, and most of which actually have never actually fulfilled their early promise. But 8 out of 16 is enough, to make a lot of money. And for the entrepreneurs themselves to make a lot of money. So you just have to, I will not invest in a business unless I think it's a star business. And sometimes it's a false star, You know, it's not really a star. But you have to make those calls sometimes, and if you don't make those calls, then you can't get in when the company's really cheap to invest in.
So Richard, many times, having been to lots of seminars and lots of trainings, I think a lot of times, getting people to come to things is like the art of making it sound really easy and really simple, and then somewhere along the way there's the switch where, so here's where the PhD dissertation comes in. And you won't really mind it very much. It only takes 5 years, right?
Yeah.
And then you're feeling like, oh, I fell for it again. Can you explain why your approach to business really is, well, how is it different from that?
Well, I'm trying to isolate the principles which are simple and clear and which describe why a small number of businesses are very successful and the large majority of businesses are pretty mediocre or unsuccessful. And in doing that, I'm trying to simplify my experience. And the truth is that I live this way. I mean, this is, I follow these principles. As an investor, I don't invest in something that's not a star business. And what that means is that I can take an investment proposal from somebody, a one-page proposal, because I can't be doing these huge decks that people produce. And it's either obvious to me that I should invest in this business, or it's obvious that I shouldn't. Or perhaps I restate that slightly. In the great majority of cases, it's clear that I shouldn't be investing. And then sometimes you get it right away. Sometimes you need to ask a few questions because they might not tell you how fast the market is growing and things like that. So you ask the questions and then you come to the answer. But if it's not obvious, I don't invest. So that's a very, very simple procedure. In terms of helping entrepreneurs, sometimes you do need to probe, and there's the issue of segmentation, which is, how is your business really different from another person's business? And it's a simple idea, but it's not a totally obvious idea. So, for example, if you decided that you would set up as a automobile manufacturer and you painted all your cars red, and you said, hey, I'm the only person in the world that only makes red cars, you could say that's a differentiation, but obviously it's not a defensible segment because there's no economics behind that, which make it cheaper for you to make red cars rather than all the other cars. Although to start with, actually, Henry Ford, decided to make everything black. He didn't do it at first. He did it actually in 1913, and that was because the only paint which would dry fast enough to keep up with his assembly line was Japan black paint. So in that case, it was true that black cars actually were a separate segment because it was all part of the mass manufacture rather than batch production of cars. So there are some sort of subtle things that you need to probe and you need to ask the questions, but the answers to the questions are absolutely clear and the principles are absolutely clear. And I am a great simplifier myself, and I make no apology for it. I don't think business success is complicated, and that sounds very presumptuous and thing to do. But I didn't invent these principles. I didn't invent the STAR principle. I didn't invent the 80-20 principle. All I do is realize that these things are so fabulously powerful that if you run your business and your life according to these principles, it somehow becomes a lot easier. And of course, the difficult things about life are not making money. I think making money is a relatively simple. Difficult things are personal relationships, and I haven't produced a way to simplify personal relationships. And I suspect you just can't do that. But some things are easy, and I happen to think business is one of those. Investment is one of those. Being an entrepreneur, it's difficult to run a company because you've got all the human dimensions, but it ain't difficult to set the strategy. That's my strong belief. So if you think that you're going to get the PhD thesis, you're going to be disappointed because I don't do PhD theses. I do things which are simple.